Next up, we have from our good neighbours at UTS. We've got Ashley Willcox, Liz Penny, and they're from the Accessibility and Financial Assistance Service of University of Technology, Sydney, along with Francesca Harrison, Caitlin Stringer, Caleb Archer from the Student Committee. Please make them welcome. Yep, that's on.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're here today to share the way we work and what we've been achieving through our consultation and co-design with our Student Learning Advisory Committee, self-named SLAC. I'd like to introduce our students presenting today. We have Francesca here, who's been involved in the committee since we began back in 2023. And we've got Caleb, who joined last year, and also Caitlin, who's recently joined just this year. So I think we've already done the introduction. So I'm Liz, and I manage the Accessibility and Financial Assistance team at UTS, and Ashley is from our Inclusive Practices support team that's located within our education portfolio. So today, we'll be covering the context and how we bring our perspectives together, how we operate SLAC, our focus on ensuring that student perspective is embedded into our work, and our students will share their personal experience of SLAC. SLAC started with a collaboration between Accessibility Service and the Inclusive Practices team because we were seeking a way to easily consult with students on a regular basis to inform our practice and check that we were getting things right before going live. So while Accessibility Service has a high priority on providing support and services, we also focus on actively using the learnings to inform the work with the Inclusive Practices team so that we're mirroring what students are seeking and reflecting that in the guides, information and recommendations made in Inclusive Practices to academics.
Thanks, Liz. This is turned on clearly for everyone? Okay. So about the Inclusive Practices team. So we sit within the education portfolio, and that's working a lot with learning designers who create the Canvas course sites for all the students at UTS. We investigate good practices for designing for accessibility. We support academic staff to implement the accessible practices for students. We collaborate to improve the systems, technology, tools, and resources that are used within the learning ecosystem. And we work with students with lived experience to amplify their voice. So the difference between the accessibility services versus inclusive practices at UTS, the accessibility services are support for students, whereas the inclusive practices team are support for teaching staff. So the student voice is needed for staff to understand the impact of students' experience. We've found that this is the most important, effective, and powerful way to get the messages across so that academics are implementing accessible and inclusive practices within the UTS environment. And now I will talk about SLAC. So the Student Learning Advisory Committee is a collaboration between the Accessibility Service, the education portfolio, and students aiming to change the narrative that students with disabilities are slackers. Instead, we share and gain insights on how to make UTS more accessible, which is evidenced by this workshop activity in one of the SLAC session last year, where the students worked on what the front shop store would look like for orientation day. And how do we operate? So the logistics are students are in paid roles, and this is very important that students are paid for their time. We meet monthly for 3 hours. We split students in tables, group tables, with a facilitator on each table to facilitate the conversations, take notes via Teams, and monitor for any non-verbal conversations via Teams. We respond to student feedback via a survey to ensure we are making the sessions accessible, and we will adapt and change each session accordingly to the feedback that we are getting each session. So I will pass to Francesca now to talk about the themes.
So I'm Francesca, and Liz mentioned earlier, I've been on the Student Learning Advisory Committee since it started in 2023, which is great because I've had a lot of opportunity to work on different products, but also see the evolution of the Student Learning Advisory Committee, how it's being accepted within the broader UTS ecosystem and the sorts of things people are bringing us in to speak to them about. So we've done some continuous improvements. We've looked at the accessibility service, what sorts of services available to us within that, what our experience is, which is great because we know that people are listening to us when we have concerns about how we're being heard at UTS. We've looked at accessibility more broadly at UTS. So this is both infrastructure and culture. We've looked at formal and informal learning spaces. How can they be made more accessible? And we spent a lot of time consulting around the nature of accessibility at UTS. So are we being heard in our culture? Are student-facing staff, particularly teachers, considerate of students with accessibility needs, and how are they factoring that into their teaching? We've also looked at a range of one-off projects and initiatives. We've consulted most recently on the Be Accessible campaign. I won't speak to that in a lot of detail because Caitlin and Caleb are going to talk to you more about that later. We've looked at the special consideration review. So at the moment, UTS is going through a process to improve our special consideration services for students. I'm fortunate enough to work on this on the staff side as well, and I got to come in and consult the Student Learning Advisory Committee and speak with the students around what their needs are in this space, which was great. Not only to know what this is like on the student end, but actually how do staff get to use the feedback we give them, and that's been incredible. We've looked at assessment reform. How do we make our assessments most accessible for students with a whole range of learning needs? How do we make our assessments better for students so actually they're in line with the sorts of work we're expected to be completing once we graduate and we're working in our industries? We've looked at the new UTS generative AI and chatbot and what that's going to look like, how it can work for students with accessibility needs and how it can be most accessible. Thank you.
Oh, I've got this one. So in addition, the SLAC program also offers additional exclusive paid work opportunities for students. So for example, our attendance today, but as well as accessibility testing on specific tools. For example, the new Wi-Fi based hearing loop systems to be implemented uni-wide. We've also got students doing promotion and events, so staffing at the open day booth. So basically the students created and manned that booth for accessibility services. Also, there's a variety of options for blog writing that is usually distributed to the learning and teaching community. So this is a very flexible remote work option for the students. And a lot of the articles are mainly published on the EdHub resources website. Yep.
So the student perspective on accessibility is crucial. And that's why we continue this program, and it's perpetuated now, it's in its third year. In 2023, the student perspective, how to make UTS more accessible report was written. So this report was co-designed with the students during our final session in 2023 to capture all the work that had been done that year and feed that back into the university ecosystem. One of the examples of the way we've used this report is taking it to the learning designers who build the Canvas sites. So they actually had something tangible to work with, clear examples of what students wanted, so that the learning designers could take this information and apply it to the work they are doing. And in 2025, we have the personas, so I will let Caleb speak to this.
Logan. So yeah, in June 2024, we did some major work on developing personas for academic and student use. I'm sure you're all aware of what these are, but they are ideally a personalized reflection of the diverse student cohort registered with accessibility services at UTS. They assist us with research and creating genuine stories to better understand their lived experience, pain points, needs, and wants. Our personas were initially drafted by the Inclusive Practices team. However, we relied heavily on co-creation with students as part of our SLAC program to ensure authenticity and a genuine representation. This was an extensive process structured over 12 months, collaborating with students, staff, and industry clients. Details right down to the names, complex conditions, and their stances in illustrations were reviewed iteratively over the year. Since then, they have been well received by students and used for a variety of outcomes I will get to in a moment. Next slide, please. So here are wonderful co-created personas. They're continually being refined and developed, but I'll briefly go over them from left to right. So first up, we have Mai. She represents a range of complex conditions, notably fatigue, vertigo, or symptoms of long COVID. She was developed as a wild card that combined the experiences and needs that were not covered by the rest of the personas. Then we have Andy. Andy struggles with ongoing anxiety and depression, but most days he is okay. From time to time, he needs adjustments due to poor time management and keeping on top of everything. Cohen is a proud Indigenous student who is often overlooked due to his invisible condition, that is colour vision deficiency. We found that many Cohens tend not to register with accessibility nor seek out help. Then we have Moen, is a cheery individual who doesn't let his mobility slow him down. He was modelled from a range of students with ambulatory and temporary mobility impacts. Now we have Nazim and Narina. So the neurodivergent spectrum is very broad. So we've broken them down into two main facets to better represent their needs, and that is autism and ADHD. Then we have Bin. So Bin has tunnel vision and is often with her guide dog to help her navigate the campus and is a big fan of alternative text. Then we have Hayo. She's a bit shy and quiet, being hard of hearing, but she enjoys music and social conversations just as much as anybody else, especially when she's comfortable among her peers. So I must note again that these were adapted and modified through consultation with the SLAC students. As a result, there were several additions such as Mai, Andy, as well as a split of Nasim and Narina. Our personas will continue to evolve and inform us, and we'll be soon adding Denny as our deaf candidate. So our personas have been used in a number of successful workshops and have been well received by staff and student alike. Some examples of how they've been utilized include how we retain consistency and structure in Canvas. So Canvas is our university's module. So that helps students like Narina and Bin. So with clear navigation to help manage that helps them managing their content by reducing cognitive load and anxiety. And as well as for Bin, it helps them memorize structure that reduces fatigue and can access materials effectively. But more importantly, beyond interventions such as alt text and color adjustments, these workshops provide soft skills for academics, the whole picture, so to speak, helping them gain an understanding of the complexities and challenges from the personal perspective of students, how it may affect their interactions and everyday life. Fostering empathy among staff has led to positive outcomes for both parties, especially for the satisfaction and well-being of students.
So I'm Caitlin, and I'm going to be talking to you about the Be Accessible campaign. So this campaign is focused on creating a community culture where inclusivity is not just an added consideration, but an everyday exception. It is about embedding inclusive practices into everyday learning, teaching, and campus life, so every student and staff member feels welcomed, valued, and supported in their environment. This is not just a one-off initiative, but a long-term evolving campaign aimed at responding to the current needs of the UTS community. The content is reviewed and refreshed regularly so it can continue to reflect the real-life experiences and challenges faced each day. What makes Be Accessible so special is that it is co-designed by students like me. Our voices, our experiences, and insights shape the direct campaign's messaging. This ensures that stories are told and change is being driven by grounded and lived experiences. We are currently in the final stages of finalising this campaign, but our first step is to focus on the academic staff, as inclusive learning starts in the classroom and in order to lay the groundwork of broader community culture change. The long-term goal is to embed accessibility into all areas of university life, so accessibility can become a part of everyday decision-making across the board. On the image on the right-hand side is depicting a ideal digital learning environment based on a social model of disability. As displayed in front of you, we have two campaign images that take shape visually and practically. On the left, there is a poster stating differences, not deficits, reflecting that diversity should be recognized and valued, not something negative. The illustration featuring as students interacting reinforces the message of inclusion as a social norm. On the right, we see an academic working collaboratively with a student with a sunflower on their left shoulder and holding a fidget, highlighting the importance of understanding individual learning needs and creative supportive environments for students to learn and feel supported. Next one, please. So we're going to give you a bit of a rundown on our experiences with SLAC from a student perspective. So as I stated, my name's Caitlin. I'm in my 3rd year of uni and I'm studying an exercise and sports science bachelor's. SLAC has been a really good opportunity for me. Like, I only started this year, but everyone's been so welcomed and I've learnt so much about the accessibility and what we offer. And it feels really good to be on the back end, knowing that we're making a positive change for students with similar disabilities like mine, and where they can feel more supported in such a daunting environment as well. So pass it on.
Yes, hi again. I'm Caleb. I'm hard of hearing, but I'm a UTS student. I started quite a while ago. I suppose you could call me a lifelong learner, about 10 years ago now. I have a host of health issues. I had to get brain surgery during COVID, like all kinds of things. So I'm still there. However, across this whole time, accessibility have been there with me the whole time. So it's really, I'm just giving something back, and it feels really good to give something back, and also to have our feedback implemented directly and seeing the changes happen. Like, after so long, like I'd never embraced my disability, but as I grew older, I used to have invisible hearing aids. Now you can see them full ball, and I'm just taking back that side of me, and accessibility have supported us, and I can't thank them enough. Liz and Ashley, very empathetic people, but it feels really good to get to contribute, just to give something back. And I'll pass on to Francesca.
Thank you. I'm completing an undergraduate degree in political science and creative intelligence and innovation, which is great. But being part of the Student Learning Advisory Committee for the last 2.5 years now has been a great opportunity. It's been great to meet other students registered with accessibility and connect in that space, because that can be really difficult at university. And it's been great to contribute to university programs across all of UTS, and actually see the impacts of our contributions as they get rolled out. Thank you. I'll give that to you.
And now we can open up for questions if there are any. Should I bring the mic over? No.
Do they want this?
There's another one here.
I've got some. Turn this off.
Great. Thank you. Okay. Thanks so much, Caitlin, Caleb, and Francesca. It's so awesome to hear from students, and I love hearing about how this is helpful for academics as well, because I'm sure there are diverse academics who'll benefit from that structure and advice too. I just wondered, what's the plan for the uptake? How are you going to monitor that? Is it something that you're doing like piloting with one faculty, or are you going to report on who actually designs their course, like, or their units in future? Like, how are we going to know, I guess, the success of the academics using this?
Okay. Thank you, Claire, for the question. So what is positive within the education portfolio? We have in the learning design team, they are segmented into what we call pods. And so there are each faculty has their own pod. We are in clear communication with them regularly, giving feedback on how their courses are designed. And then there's also the upskilling of academics within the different faculties as well. So this is actually a way that we can monitor how, who is working on the changes, what's been upskilled as well. And I can actually give clear examples of, so say, for example, we have the accessible content practices at UTS, which we are encouraging, when the courses are built, that all of these practices are followed, and they are very general to cover a wide, every type of disability. However, when we get a student registered with accessibility, and I'll give Like the most recent example is we have student with vision loss, and we've actually created some subject enhancement accessibility case studies that are now published, which you can access via our Education Express website. We've published these case studies as examples because even though we encourage courses to be designed accessibly, when there are, for example, we had a case where the student was enrolled in physiotherapy and there were subjects with x-rays and ECGs. And so we actually had to go in, liaise with the subject coordinators, find out what's crucial with the subject design from the subject matter experts, not the learning designers building the content, but the actual subject matter experts relevant to the degree or field, which is of course in every degree. So we got that feedback. What's the purpose? What does the student need to learn? Then liaising with the student on what their access requirement was, we figured out a way to create x-rays and make them more accessible, for example, with contrast. So it had to be high contrast, putting defined like red circles around areas that they needed to focus on. And then also with ECGs, we used swell paper that the student could actually physically touch the ECG. So that's an example of an enhancement case study where we actually have to go in even deeper while the subjects, we've liaised with subject coordinators how to make it accessible. We are very conscious of their time load and the skill level. So this is where it's a variety of teams that are incorporated into the process. So I hope that helps answer the question on a deeper level.
That's great. We'll grab a couple of questions from Slido in our last couple of minutes. If you were going to start a group like SLAC, great. name.
Sorry, can I interrupt very quickly? Sorry, it's Darren from online. Can we ask the presenters to stand in front of the camera because we can't see anybody when this is happening? That would be fantastic. Thank you very much. And maybe is it Caleb? I think your mic's probably the loudest out of everybody's because we're having real difficulty between different microphones and their level. It's up and down all over the place.
Am I in front of the camera now?
Yes, you're dead center right at the minute.
Beautiful. Mike's a little bit low. So I was speaking to, if you're going to start a group like SLAC at another institution, how would you go about recruiting students and what would the first meeting look like? And I think this will be our last question.
Okay, so the way we went about it was we developed a position description. We put out an expression of interest to all the students who are registered with us. And then we made our selections from there. And in terms of the first session, I'm trying to remember exactly what happened, but it was mostly about getting to know one another and then also starting to find out what were the priorities from the student end in terms of, you know, if they had the power to change anything at the uni, what would it be? And then prioritizing the things from there and then seeing how it aligns with, you know, opportunities that come up. So sometimes there's not an opportunity to change something, and other times we know what's happening strategically or in a particular area, and we can make sure that we get in there and try and get some action to happen.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. This has brought us to the end of this session. I'd like to thank all of you, Ashley, Liz, Francesca, Caitlin, Caleb, and Karen Ann for these presentations about co-design and all of the energy that's gone into them.